New York Cancer and Blood Specialists present Radio for a Cure, a breast cancer awareness program featuring real people, real stories.
Hi, I'm JB Morris from Long Island's KJOY 98.3, part of Connoisseur Media Long Island, and we are here with Radio for a Cure, which is a breast cancer awareness campaign that focuses on early detection, annual mammograms, clinical exams, and self-exams, which is why I'm here today with Eileen Pillitteri from the Mora Foundation. They focus on breast health education. And we're here today, Eileen, because you're going to actually show us how to properly do a breast exam.
Absolutely. I find the one thing is that most folks are not doing a proper self-exam because nobody's ever told them the right way.
Well, we've been told to do it.
Right, and that's about it.
That's about it.
So let's talk about where to look. So our breast tissue extends pretty far into our body. So it goes from above our collarbone, deep into our armpits, down to about our fifth rib. So if you made that aloha sign, stuck it way up in your armpit, wherever your pinky dangled, that's where we check down to, and everything across. So that's probably the biggest misconception, is that it's just what fits in the bra cup. So when we're checking ourselves, we're going to use 3 fingers. And if we were doing it on our arm, we want to think about using increasing pressure. So we start with a light pressure that barely even moves our skin. Medium is about halfway down our chest tissue, and deep is as much pressure as we can tolerate. So if we were starting deep in our armpit, we'd do that light, medium, deep, and just take a step over. You see, it's a tiny step, about a finger's width. Slide those fingers together. We don't really want to pick our hands up because we don't want to miss anything. So light, medium, deep, and we walk it down. Light, medium, deep, walk it down. So we start deep in the armpit, we do that walking movement, get down to that fifth rib, take that tiny step over, and it's like a lawnmower, up and down across our chest. There is some repositioning about how we're laying in bed, and we can find more of that information on morafoundation.org. We have our instructions. But the most important part is for people to understand we have a lot of natural texture in our chest, and that's what we use these breast models for, to figure out what's normal, lumpy, normal texture, and what would be suspicious that we then should get checked out by our physicians. So let's kind of practice those 3 fingers. If we want to start on the light side, just want you to check around the light side of the model. And is there words that you would use to describe what this feels like?
Squishy?
It's squishy, but kind of very consistently squishy. Some people feel like a gel, right?
Right.
And so this would be indicative of a much older person with no texture in the chest, mainly fatty tissue. What's surprising is if we flipped it around to the dark side, most people actually feel a lot more like this dark side of the model.
Oh.
So what words would you use to kind of describe this dark side?
It's much firmer.
Firmer, absolutely.
There's definitely lumps.
A lumpiness.
You can feel a lumpiness to it.
So this is normal texture, and the younger we are, the more lumpy we'll tend to feel. So it's normal lumpy, and how do we know? Because it's kind of consistently lumpy. As you moved your hands around that model, you could say nothing's really standing out as being very different than something else. In fact, the more pressure we use, if we're using that light, medium, very deep pressure, it actually feels less lumpy. So something would be considered a suspicious lump if it has 3 characteristics: a distinct shape, a distinct texture, and a border where we can really isolate it and almost get our fingertip all the way around that. So we have that here with the pink lump. So if you want to try practicing that light, medium, deep pressure, circle down on that, and we know that that's a light pressure lump here. It's right near the surface. Almost feels like a pimple or a wart. Sometimes we're going to find lumps at deeper pressure. So we circle down on this tan lump right here on the dark side of the model. You're going to say, okay, that needs a little more pressure. So the difference between these 2 lumps is one could be hard. This one's texture is a little different. How does this feel to you when you press on it?
It definitely feels a little, when I put more pressure on it, you can feel that it almost blends in. I don't know, I can't describe it.
Right, because this is kind of almost a squishy lump in this naturally lumpy part of the model. But once we reach that lump and we try to get our fingertip all the way around it and say, okay, is that just an isolated lump? We can, it has that natural border. So when we're doing our self-check, we're not gonna skip any part of our chest. But for men in particular, it's really important that they don't skip the nipple area because that's where oftentimes they'll find their breast cancer. So if we think about circling down on top of that nipple area and doing that light, medium, very deep pressure, you'll find that there's a hidden lump right under there, really hard and firm, almost like a bead or a pebble. So all of these things are suspicious because they have a distinct texture from all the tissue around it. And the last lump we like to talk about here is this white lump. And if we actually give this one a little bit of nudge, just with our fingertip, we realize this one can move. So this is one of the reasons why we use 3 fingers. One, to make it more comfortable when we check, but to hope that a movable lump is somehow captured within these 3 fingertips. So these are all considered suspicious because they all have a distinct shape, texture, and a border, but we'll never know whether they're cancer or not. That's when we bring that lump to the physician for them to check out and do some additional testing.
And we should be getting mammograms annually also, starting at around what age?
Generally at age 40. If you're at high risk from either having a significant family medical history or there's known genetic mutations in your family, we start recommending as young as 25. But that's a conversation you should be having with your physician to figure out what's the appropriate screening age and methodology, particularly if you're screening that young.
And we should start teaching young as well. You go around to a lot of high schools and a lot of other areas as well, right?
Absolutely, because we know that it's the habits that we set in adolescence about the foods we eat, whether we're moving enough or whether we decide to start smoking or drinking alcohol, that really affects our breast cancer risk decades down the road. So the earlier we can get folks on the right track, the better their outcomes will be. And we want them to know what their chest feels like, even at a very early age. So if something changes, because we discuss breast cancer starting at younger ages. We're seeing more people being diagnosed in the 20s and 30s. So they really need to know how to check themselves long before a mammogram comes along, because they're not really eligible till much later on.
And is there a place where we can visit or go if we want any more information like this?
Absolutely. The best place to find more about what we do and about how to do a proper self-check is morefoundation.org. We have tons of information there as well. And you can always request a program if you want us to come and speak to your group or to be able to provide this information.
This has been super educational for me. Like I said earlier, you're always told to check, but I never really knew what I was checking for. And now seeing how different things can be, it's so important that everybody learns this.
Absolutely. Most important thing is just start checking, right?
Yes.
And we'll figure out what's our normal lumpy. And so if something changes over time, hopefully it won't. But if it does, then we know, okay, this is a change for us. But we have to start today, start that check this month.
Thank you so much. This is Radio for a Cure. Get yourself checked.